All right, guys, if the Stanley Cup playoffs were to start today, we would have Vancouver against Nashville, Edmonton against the Kings, Dallas against Vegas, Colorado against Winnipeg in the East, Boston against Tampa, Panthers and Leafs, Rangers and Red Wings, and Carolina against the New York Islanders. So, all this being considered for this discussion, what, in your mind, Thomas, is the most intriguing first-round matchup if these were the matchups?
I think there's more intriguing ones to be had, and I hope things shift around. But for me right now, I'm going to go with a rematch from last year, talking about Florida and Toronto. So those two teams, the storylines are so different now heading into it because Toronto got over the hump last year, right? They got that playoff series win. But what does it turn to now? Obviously, the storyline's been Austin Matthews this year, the year they're having, but it's also been Florida's my team to take home the Stanley Cup for so much this season. All of a sudden, they've looked dead for a long time, and maybe they're finding their game just in the nick of time. But seeing these two teams go up against one another, not going to be the same as it was last year. It's not going to be the same as it would have been about a month ago. Teams heading in sort of different directions. So that one intrigues me more than the rest.
Yeah, anything involving Toronto is going to be a little bit intriguing with what they do. For me, I'm going to say the Dallas Stars and the Vegas Golden Knights. How about the Stars? Here's your reward. Best team in the Western Conference. You get the defending champs. So what are we talking about here? And maybe fully staffed. We know Tomas Hertl coming back. Mark Stone may have on the horizon. If Vegas gets healthy, who knows what that team looks like? They wouldn't have played together, but boy, they'll have last year's experience to draw from. Plus their new players. Mantha's starting to fit in really nicely. Hannafin's been really good. That is a very tough matchup, but Dallas is in first for a reason. They are so deep up front, so many 20-goal scorers, so much offense there. The emergence of Harley in the back end is really important for them. Chris Tanev has gone and done exactly what he's supposed to do. And if Jake Ottinger gets what he's supposed to do, then they should be okay. But, I mean, it's a tough matchup for winning the division to get the defending champs who might be loaded, healthy, and ready to go again.
All right. If the playoffs were to start today, what, in your opinion, is the most intriguing goalie matchup?
Okay, so if they start today, I'm going to give Thatcher Demko some good health because he hasn't played in a little while. But for Vancouver Canucks, Nashville Predators, talk about two goaltenders who are capable and have shown themselves capable of stealing a series, Thatcher Demko, Juuse Saros. I mean, those are two guys who have been at elite level. And you remember, Demko in the playoffs at the time, the bubble Demko, we talked about that. Saros, his numbers in the regular season have really responded as Nashville's gone on this great second half run. And he's got good numbers in the playoffs. I just think those are two goalies that are both capable of not just winning a game, but they're capable of winning a series. And that is always intriguing when you have goalies that good going against each other.
Yeah, I agree. Both of those guys, like you said, they can win games. They can win series. They're that gifted, so a lot of it will be on health. But Juuse Saros finding his game. There was questions, could he be traded? I can't imagine Nashville now without Saros. For me, I'm going to go to the East. And I'm talking about Tampa in Vasilevsky, who has found his game. He's returned to form. He had his surgery. He's back now. So are the Bolts, and I think they go as far as Vasilevsky takes them. He looks in peak form, and they're going to be playing, if the playoffs start today, the Boston Bruins, and I don't care which guy it is. Is it Swayman? Is it Hallmark? Do they rotate every single game? It doesn't matter. They're going to have a chance to win with each of those guys, but the other thing that they do have, if someone gets hot, you can ride that guy. So for me, this one's really intriguing to see who the better goalie would be out of the three of them in a whole series.
That's part of the conversation, though.
Does
Boston
maybe...
Is that an issue, having two number-one goalies and the controversy about who to play?
Not when they love each other.
Johnny? Would you rotate like they've done all
year? I think I would because they have.
I wouldn't be scared of it, yeah.
Why change now? I know just because it's against the grain, but you have two guys who basically split, have almost the exact same stats. So long as they're both healthy, I don't know why you would do anything different.
You can get in the situation where you go, we'll just play a guy till he loses, too, right? I think everyone would understand that. Not a bad way to do it,
Yeah, but what if you don't play well, the team plays well, you win 6-5, you get to play again?
Yeah.
Like, I think I go with what got you there. You rotate them in the playoffs.
All right, it's going to be very interesting to see how that works out. All right, guys, if the playoffs started today, Mike, player with the most pressure to succeed is?
I'm going back to Toronto and Mitch Marner. One of the best wingers in the league. He's been fantastic for several years, but he's also been part of that group in Toronto that hasn't had a ton of playoff success. Yes, they got over the hump in winning a series last year, but in the second round against Florida, he had a tough series. Kind of got pushed a little bit to the outside. That physical nature of the defense that Florida played gave him a tough time. He's put up points and he scored some goals the last two playoffs. So it's not like the production won't be there, but I think Toronto, Marner, Matthews, Nylander, their best players in the biggest moments have to step forward and say, we win because we're great. And they are great players. The way they win the regular season because of that greatness hasn't always happened in the playoffs, so a lot of pressure on Mitch in Toronto.
Yeah, with big markets come big pressure. So I'm going to do sort of the same thing. Artemi Panarin. I can't say enough good things about the season that he's had. And let's just rewind a little bit. The free agent signing to bring him to New York looks like a phenomenal signing every single year, well over a point a game, and this year's been his best. And now him and Lafreniere, everything has clicked for Artemi Panarin. The only thing that he hasn't done in New York is perform at this level that we've seen, or even what we've seen in the regular season come playoff time. And for me, I love the way he plays. He's grittier than people give him credit for. It's going to come down to, can you produce in the playoffs, and can you be the reason that we move on, along with our stars and Shesterkin and Adam Fox. But Panarin is the guy in Manhattan right now, and I think unless he performs like that in the playoffs, he's probably going to feel a bit of that heat. So I think there's pressure on him.
Every matchup I love him in except the Islanders. That's the one matchup that would get harder for him. He plays Pittsburgh or Washington or Detroit. He'll have a field day.
Why you say that?
It's just a little more defensive, a little more physical, a little more straight line play, and I think the emotions of the Islander-Ranger rivalry get the game in a way that, not that he can't thrive, of course he can, but just I like the matchups of the other teams better to suit his game.
Panarin has had a career year. We'll see what happens in the postseason. All right, if the playoffs, Thomas, were to start today, team most susceptible to a first-round upset is which team?
I'm going to go with the Colorado Avalanche, and this has nothing to do with the Colorado Avalanche. It has everything to do with Winnipeg, and it has everything to do with Connor Hellebuyck. And this is a group, look, they've made their additions this year, not even little small splashes, the big ones too. You bring in Walker, you bring in Middlestat, you totally change the outlook of your team. You get the center depth that you tried to find in the summer, you didn't get it. I loved how they pivoted and found it. But it's this guy, number 37. And if they are playing the Winnipeg Jets, as good as Alex Georgiev has been this year, he leads the NHL in wins. I have a lot of respect for that. I trust Hellebuyck more. And as good as the Winnipeg Jets go, the reason why is Connor Hellebuyck. So that is why I would pick the Colorado Avalanche, because I don't want to run into a hot goaltender. No one's been better than him.
Very likely Winnipeg's goalie is better than Colorado.
Yes.
He'll have to be, but he can be, and he might steal a series. For me, it's the Florida Panthers. You talked about everybody around the league thought, maybe in February, they're going to win the Stanley Cup. They looked unbeatable, built for the playoffs, physical, fast, everyone having great years. Well, they've hit a rut big time, and they've also bumped in some injuries. And I think they showed last year what momentum and great goaltending can do. Now, Bobrovsky's been really good. That's not really been a problem, but I just think given some of their injuries and the way they played down the stretch, and they're going up against Toronto, very likely, and Toronto will be the underdog, understandably, but Toronto has the kind of players, if they play well, they can cause problems for Florida, and we saw them.
If.
If. But that's why they're not the favorite. But if they play well, then they're good enough to beat them, and they saw them play last week. Toronto looked a bit faster than Florida for the first time, so that could be an issue.
All right, it's going to be interesting for sure.